Furious beeps pierced Princess Sirius' languid haze, shattering her boredom. Her obsidian eyes widened at the holographic star charts now detailing humanity's 500,000 supercarriers. 5 times the Una's fleet strength. Impossible. Envy and rage boiled inside her lavender skin. Those primitive apes had eclipsed her father's mighty empire. Storming into the cavernous throne room, Sirius confronted a dismissive Emperor Arcturus. "The humans are insects, daughter. They are beneath my concern," Arcturus declared, his tentacles waving lazily. Sirius accused him of weakness, her mind swirling with plots. If Arcturus lacked the will to crush the upstarts, she would act herself. Heart-pounding, Sirius darted into a deserted hangar bay. The Spectre X-1 prototype gleamed invitingly, its sleek black hull promising stealth and speed. Blasting off, Sirius rocketed towards the USS Odyssey supercarrier, icy determination flooding her veins. Touchdown. The Terran ship's utilitarian landing bay, a stark contrast to Una's opulence. But as Sirius emerged, a wall of phaser rifles greeted her, wielded by hard-eyed human marines. Their captain, a rugged man with piercing blue eyes, stepped forward. "I am Crown Princess Sirius of the Unas," she declared haughtily. "I have come to scout the weaknesses of your pitiful fleet. Submit to my rule or face annihilation." Captain Lewis quirked an unimpressed eyebrow. "Earth has faced down worse than you, Your Highness," he said evenly. "We'll never bow to alien tyrants." Suddenly, klaxons screamed. Crew raced to battle stations as a gargantuan Zorak warship dropped from warp, weapons locked on the Odyssey. Momentarily forgotten, Sirius watched the humans mobilize with startling efficiency, an unexpected respect dawning. Perhaps she had underestimated these audacious Terrans, and as the Zorak guns opened fire, Sirius realized an alliance with Captain Lewis might be her only hope of survival. The Zorak warship's guns erupted, searing beams of plasma lancing towards the USS Odyssey. Captain Lewis reacted instantly, his voice cutting through the bridge. "Evasive maneuvers now! Return fire! Full spread!" The Odyssey banked hard, narrowly evading the brunt of the Zorak salvo. A glancing blow struck the supercarrier's shields, sending tremors racing through the deck plates. Alarms wailed, and sparks showered from overloaded consoles. But the ship held together. The Terran vessel's superior engineering withstood the onslaught. "Target their weapon systems," Lewis commanded, his icy calm a stark contrast to the chaos engulfing the bridge. "We need to neutralize their offensive capabilities." As the tactical officer moved to comply, a new contact blinked into existence on the sensors. A second Zorak dreadnought shimmered into view, decloaking behind its compatriot. The mammoth warship opened fire immediately, adding its considerable might to the assault on the Odyssey. Lewis grimaced, the odds stacking against them with each passing second. The Odyssey was outgunned and outnumbered, caught between 2 juggernauts intent on its destruction. Amidst the frenzy of battle, Princess Sirius stood forgotten, watching the humans fight for survival with a mixture of awe and calculation. These Terrans were outmatched, yet they fought on with tenacity and skill. Unbidden, a grudging respect kindled in Sirius's heart. But respect alone would not save them. The Odyssey's shields buckled under the unrelenting Zorak barrage, the ship shuddering like a wounded beast. Lewis barked orders, desperate to find a way out, but options were dwindling rapidly. In that moment, Sirius made a choice. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din. "Captain Lewis, I can help you defeat the Zorak, but I have a condition." Lewis whirled to face her, disbelief etched on his chiseled features. "What are you proposing?" "A temporary truce," Sirius replied, her obsidian eyes hard as flint. "I have knowledge of Zorak technology that can give us an edge. But in return, you must guarantee my safety and agree to an alliance." Conflict warred on Lewis's face. Trusting in Una's princess, the enemy he had sworn to oppose, grated against every instinct. But as the Odyssey quaked under another devastating hit, he knew there was no choice. "Agreed," he said tersely. "What's your plan?" Sirius wasted no time. "I need access to your engineering systems. My ship, the Spectre X-1, has advanced hacking capabilities. If we can interface it with your systems, we might be able to disrupt the Zorax weapons remotely. Lewis nodded curtly. Petrov, he barked, summoning his chief engineer. Work with the princess. Make it happen. Lieutenant Commander Mikhail Petrov, a bear of a man with a wild shock of hair, eyed Sirius warily, but he knew the stakes. Aye, sir. We'll get it done. As Petrov and Sirius raced to engineering, Lewis took the con. The Odyssey danced and weaved, its human crew working as one to keep the ship in the fight. They were outclassed in raw power, but they made up for it in skill and commitment. In engineering, Sirius and Petrov worked frantically, jury-rigging a connection between the Spectre, X-1 and the Odyssey systems. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. Precious seconds ticked by as the Zorax ships pressed their attack. The Odyssey's shields were failing, its hull battered and scorched. Just as it seemed the Supercarrier would be overwhelmed, Petrov shouted in triumph. We've got it! Initiating the hack, now! On the bridge, Lewis watched in disbelief as the Zorax ships suddenly faltered. Their weapons powered down, leaving them defenseless. The hack had worked. All weapons, fire at will, Lewis roared. Take them down! The Odyssey's guns roared to life, a storm of phaser fire and photon torpedoes slamming into the crippled Zorax vessels. Their weakened shields crumpled like paper, the human weaponry tearing through hull and superstructure with devastating effect. Outmatched and outfoxed, the Zorax commander made the only choice left. Retreat, he bellowed. Emergency warp jump. In a flash of blinding light, the Zorax ships fled, vanishing into the void of warp space. A ragged cheer went up from the Odyssey's crew, the taste of unlikely victory sweet on their tongues. In the aftermath, Captain Lewis and Princess Sirius stood face to face on the battle-scarred bridge. A newfound respect hung between them, an acknowledgement of the strength and ingenuity they had witnessed in each other's people. Thank you, Lewis said gruffly. We couldn't have done it without you. Sirius inclined her head, a regal gesture tempered by the fire of shared battle. And I would not have survived without your crew's bravery. Perhaps there is more to you humans than I thought. But even as they savored their hard-won reprieve, a new specter loomed. Petrov, poring over the data from the hack, called out in alarm. Captain, I found something in the Zorax systems. They were using advanced UNA's technology in their weapons. That shouldn't be possible. Lewis and Sirius traded grim looks, the implications sinking in like lead weights. If the UNAs and Zorax were collaborating, if this was just the opening salvo in a larger conflict, the stakes had just become unimaginably higher. We need to get to the bottom of this, Lewis declared. If there's a threat out there that could engulf both our peoples, we have to uncover the truth. Sirius nodded, drive hardening her delicate features. Agreed. An alliance between us may be the only way to prevent catastrophe. She knew she could not return to her empire, not yet. Not until they understood the scope of the danger they faced. Her path now lay with these humans, for better or worse. Lewis extended a hand, a gesture of partnership. Then let's get to work. We'll need a team of the best and brightest from across the galaxy to crack this mystery. Sirius clasped his hand, sealing their pact. A human and an UNA's, once bitter enemies, now united by a common cause. The seeds of an alliance that could reshape the cosmos. Together, they turned to face the stars, the Odyssey's view screen filled with the infinite expanse of space. Out there, somewhere, a conspiracy threatened to plunge the galaxy into war, and it would fall to them to stop it. The adventure was only beginning. The tension on the Odyssey's bridge dissipated, replaced by a sense of shared purpose. Captain Lewis turned to Princess Sirius, his blue eyes sharp with focus. We need a team, he said, the best of the best if we're going to unravel this conspiracy. Sirius nodded, her lavender skin shimmering under the ship's lights. I have some ideas. Within hours, they had assembled in the Odyssey's briefing room. Lieutenant Commander Petrov hunched over a data pad, his wild hair seeming to crackle with electrical energy. Beside him sat Ulysses Thorne, a human mercenary with a cocky grin and eyes that missed nothing. Sirius introduced her companions, Zara, an Una's anthropologist with keen intelligence shining in her obsidian eyes, and Virax, a towering warrior whose muscles rippled beneath scaled skin. "The Spectre X-1 is our best option," Sirius said, calling up a hologram of her sleek ship. "With some modifications, it can outrun anything in known space." Petrov's fingers flew over his datapad. "I can integrate Odyssey's shield harmonics. Double the protection, half the power draw." Lewis nodded. "Do it. We leave in 6 hours." The newly formed team worked feverishly, transforming the Spectre into a hybrid of human and Una's technology. As the final systems came online, Thorn whistled appreciatively. "She's a beauty," he said, running a hand along the gleaming hull. "Where to first, Cap?" "Ley line," Lewis replied grimly. "If anyone has answers, we'll find them there." The Spectre slipped into warp, stars streaking past viewports. In the galley, Zara cornered Sirius, concern etched on her face. "Are you sure about this?" she asked softly. "Allying with humans." Sirius's teeth gritted. "I've seen what they can do. We need them." Hours later, Leyline loomed before them. The space station was a patchwork of metal and neon, teeming with life from 100 worlds. Thorn guided them to a nondescript docking bay, his easy smile belying the tension in his shoulders. "Watch yourselves," he warned as they disembarked. "Leyline doesn't take kindly to outsiders." They wove through crowded corridors, the air thick with exotic smells and the babble of alien tongues. Thorn led them to a dingy bar, nodding to the reptilian bartender. "We're here to see Shade," he said quietly. A hidden door slid open, revealing a dimly lit backroom. A figure cloaked in shadow awaited them. "Shade," Thorn said, "we need information." The information broker's voice was a rasping whisper. "Everything has a price." Lewis stepped forward, sliding a credit chit across the table. Shade examined it, then nodded. "What do you wish to know?" "Unas and Zorak," Sirius said. "Are they working together?" Shade was silent for a long moment. "There have been meetings, a high-ranking Unas official, Zorak leadership, very hush-hush." The team exchanged shocked glances. Sirius felt her world tilt on its axis. Suddenly the door exploded inward. Una's soldiers poured through, weapons raised. At their head stood Commander Drax, his eyes locked on Sirius. "Traitor," he snarled, "your father sends his regards." Chaos erupted. Virax roared, body-checking 2 soldiers. Thorn dove for cover, returning fire with expert precision. Zara and Petrov huddled behind an overturned table as plasma bolts sizzled overhead. "Go!" Thorn shouted. "Get to the ship! We'll hold them off!" Lewis grabbed Sirius's arm, pulling her towards a service tunnel. They sprinted through maintenance shafts, alarms blaring around them. Behind them, the sounds of battle echoed. They burst onto the docking bay, racing for the Spectre. The others weren't far behind, Virax providing covering fire as they retreated. As the ship's engines roared to life, Sirius caught a glimpse of Drax's face. Fury and betrayal warred in his eyes. The Spectre screamed out of Leyline's docking bay, leaving chaos in its wake. On the bridge, the team regrouped, breathing hard. "That was too close," Petrov muttered. Lewis turned to Sirius, his expression grim. "Your father?" She nodded, her face a mask of pain. "He's part of this. He sent Drax to silence us." "We need to warn Earth," Zara said urgently. "If the Unas and Zorak are truly allied—" A proximity alarm cut her off. On the interface, a massive shape materialized from warp. "Zorak Dreadnought," Thorn breathed. "They were waiting for us." The Spectre banked hard as the first salvo of energy weapons lanced past them. Thorn's hands danced over the controls, the ship responding like a living thing. "The nebula," Petrov shouted, pointing to a roiling mass of cosmic dust. "We can lose them in there." As they plunged into the nebula's swirling mists, an uneasy quiet fell over the bridge. Lewis found himself standing next to Sirius, both staring out at the ethereal view. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "about your father." She met his gaze, vulnerability shining in her obsidian eyes. I believed in him, in the Empire. Now, Lewis's hand found hers, a gesture of comfort that sent an unexpected thrill through them both. For a moment, the weight of their mission faded, replaced by a spark of something new and exhilarating. The moment shattered as the ship rocked violently. The Zorak dreadnought had followed them into the nebula. "They're using some kind of advanced sensors," Petrov growled. "We can't shake them." Thorne swore colorfully. "We're outgunned and running out of options." Petrov's eyes lit up. "Maybe not. Captain, I have an idea." As the Spectre X-1 weaved through the nebula's cosmic tendrils, the fate of multiple civilizations hung in the balance. The mismatched crew knew their next move could mean the difference between galactic peace and all-out war. War. As Petrov's plan unfolded, the Spectre X-1 dove deeper into the nebula's swirling gases. The ship's engines strained against the cosmic currents, every system pushed to its limit. "Initiating ionic pulse," Petrov announced, his fingers flying over the controls. 3, 2, 1. A wave of energy erupted from the Spectre, rippling through the nebula. The pursuing Zorak dreadnought's sensors flickered and died, leaving it temporarily blind in the cosmic maelstrom. "Now, Thorne," Lewis barked. The mercenary grinned, executing a series of impossible maneuvers. The Spectre burst from the nebula's embrace, racing towards open space. "We're clear," Zara reported, her eyes fixed on the sensor readouts. "No sign of pursuit." A collective exhale swept through the bridge. Lewis turned to Sirius, their earlier moment of connection still crackling between them. "We need to regroup, warn Earth about what we've learned." Sirius nodded, her face set with dedication. "Agreed. But where?" A rapid series of beeps cut her off. Thorne frowned at his console. "Picking up a distress signal. It's Una's." "On screen," Lewis ordered. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a battered Una's face. Virax's eyes widened in recognition. "General Cragton?" The disgraced Una's general's voice crackled with interference. "Anyone, please. Proof of conspiracy. Emperor's betrayal." Lewis and Sirius exchanged glances. "It could be a trap," she warned. "Or it could be the evidence we need," Lewis countered. He turned to Thorne. "Set a course. We're going in." The Spectre touched down on a desolate world, its surface scarred by recent violence. As they exited the ship, the stench of ozone and burnt flesh assaulted their nostrils. Virax led the way, his massive frame tense with anticipation. They found Cragton in the smoking ruins of a makeshift base, surrounded by the bodies of his alien mercenaries. "General," Virax said softly, kneeling beside the wounded Unas. Cragton's eyes fluttered open, focusing on Sirius. "Princess, I'm sorry. Your father. Operation Phalanx." With trembling hands, he pressed a data rod into Sirius's palm. "The proof! Stop them!" His final breath rattled in his chest, and then he was gone. The wail of klaxons shattered the moment of grief. Thorne's voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple Zorak signatures dropping out of warp. We're surrounded." They sprinted for the Spectre, plasma bolts sizzling past their heads. As they reached the ship, a massive Zorak cruiser descended from the clouds, its weapons trained on their position. "We'll never make it past their fleet," Zara said, panic edging her voice. Thorne's eyes gleamed with a reckless light. "Maybe we don't have to." He pointed to the swirling, sickly green atmosphere. "Those Zorak ships are too big to follow us through that." Lewis nodded grimly. "Do it." The Spectre plunged into the planet's hyperacidic atmosphere, alarms blaring as the caustic clouds ate away at their shields. Zorak fighters screamed after them, many disintegrating in the corrosive soup. Petrov's hands danced across his console, rerouting power to maintain their fragile bubble of protection. Shields at 30%, 20%. Just as it seemed their luck had run out, they burst through the far side of the cloud bank. The pursuing Zorak fighters, their hulls compromised, exploded in a string of satisfying fireballs. But their reprieve was short-lived. As the adrenaline faded, the full extent of the damage became clear. The Spectre drifted, its engines offline as the Zorak fleet closed in for the kill. "This is it," Thorn muttered, his cocky grin finally faltering. Suddenly, space lit up with weapons fire. A human battle group dropped out of warp, led by the familiar profile of the Odyssey. The seasoned human crews tore into the Zorak ships with ruthless efficiency. As the last enemy vessel winked out of existence, a cheer went up from the Spectre's bridge. Lewis sagged with relief, catching Sirius's eye. In that moment of shared victory, something shifted between them, deepening into a bond forged in the crucible of battle. The Odyssey's tractor beam locked onto the crippled Spectre, pulling them to safety. As they docked, Lewis turned to his unlikely crew. "Let's see what's on that data rod. We've got a war to stop." They strode towards the Odyssey's war room, united in purpose. Whatever Operation Phalanx held in store, they would face it together. The data rod's contents flashed across the Odyssey's war room screens, revealing the full scope of Operation Phalanx. Faces paled as the true extent of the Una-Zorak alliance became clear. "They've been planning this for years," Petrov muttered, his fingers flying over the interface. "Staging grounds, supply lines, embedded agents." Lewis's mind focused. "We need to hit them now, before they can fully mobilize." A proximity alarm blared. Thorn's voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple contacts dropping out of warp. It's the invasion force." The view outside the Odyssey's bridge transformed into a sea of hostile ships. Una's dreadnoughts bristled with weaponry, while Zorak cruisers swarmed like angry insects. "All hands to battle stations," Lewis ordered, his voice steady despite the overwhelming odds. "Sirius, I need you on tactical." She nodded, sliding into place beside him, as if she'd always belonged there. Their eyes met for a brief moment, volumes passing unspoken between them. The void erupted in searing light as the first salvos were exchanged. Human ships, though outnumbered, fought with desperate courage. The Odyssey shuddered under repeated impacts, its shields flickering. "Shields at 60%! Petrov shouted over the din of klaxons. Lewis's hands danced over the command interface. "Concentrate fire on their lead ships. We need to disrupt their formation." Sirius's tactical genius meshed seamlessly with Lewis's audacious strategies. Human vessels executed impossible maneuvers, striking where the enemy least expected. Explosions blossomed in the starfield as Una's and Zorak ships fell to precision strikes. Yet for every enemy vessel destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The human fleet bled, ships vanishing in silent fireballs. "We can't keep this up," Thorn growled, his hands white-knuckled on the helm controls. Suddenly, a new energy signature flared on their sensors. The massive Una's flagship, Emperor Arcturus's personal dreadnought, dropped out of warp, its weapons already charging. Lewis's eyes narrowed, his mind racing through possibilities. He turned to Sirius, his expression grim. "Your father's ship. If we take it out—" She nodded, understanding the unspoken plan. "It could break their persistence." "Helm, plot an intercept course," Lewis ordered. "All power to engines and forward shields." The Odyssey surged forward, plowing through the chaotic battlefield. Enemy fire intensified as they recognized the threat, but Lewis's crew responded with preternatural skill. As they closed on the Una's flagship, Lewis's fingers hovered over the command to initiate their final, audacious attempt. He looked at Sirius, seeing the conflict in her eyes. "There's no other way," he said softly. Tears glistened in Sirius's obsidian eyes, but she nodded. "I know." In that moment, something unspoken passed between them, a connection deeper than mere allies or even friends. Sirius's hand found his, squeezing it briefly before she turned and sprinted from the bridge. Lewis watched her go, his heart heavy. Then he squared his shoulders and faced the view screen, where the Una's flagship loomed ever larger. "All hands, brace for impact," he said, his voice steady. "It's been an honor serving with you all." The Odyssey's engine screamed as Lewis initiated the final suicidal burn. The human ship became a blazing meteor, hurtling towards its inevitable destruction. In the shuttle bay, Sirius's fingers flew over the controls of a small craft. Alarms blared as she overrode safety protocols, blasting out of the Odyssey's hangar just as the massive ships made contact. The universe seemed to hold its breath for a heartbeat. Then in a cataclysm of light and fury, the Odyssey and the Una's flagship collided. Sirius's shuttle tumbled end over end, caught in the shockwave. Through the canopy, she watched the Battle of Earth reach its climax. Human commitment pitted against alien might. As consciousness faded, her last thoughts were of Lewis and his crew, of their courage, their sacrifice, and the indomitable spirit of humanity they had shown her. The shuttle, battered beyond repair, spiraled towards a desolate moon. Sirius's eyes fluttered closed as the ground rushed up to meet her, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.